This is Dennis Speed, and on behalf of my organization, the Schiller Institute, I want to express my condolences to the family of Reverend Richard Boone. I first met Reverend Boone in 1992 and already knew of him prior to that because of my association with Amelia Boynton Robinson, which had begun in the fall of 1980 from the standpoint that I came to Alabama first in November 1980 and spent some time with her. In 1992, the Reverend James Bevel ran for vice president as a candidate for that office with Lyndon LaRouche, the economist and statesman. And Bevel, who also came to Alabama at that time, I think it was May and June of 1992, insisted that we had to get to know Reverend Boone. I did not know at that time what Reverend Boone meant to Reverend Bevel. In the event that others may be as unknowledgeable as I was on that occasion, let me just cite a passage from Taylor Branch's book on the Civil Rights Movement, Pillar of Fire, the second volume of his three-part study. And he talks about Selma, Alabama, 1965. And he tells this story. He says, Diane Nash desperately tried to rescue James Bevel after a doctor at the Selma jail diagnosed his fever as viral pneumonia. She called reporters and badgered Selma officials until she secured his transfer to segregated Burwell Infirmary, where she and Bernard Lafayette were stunned to find James Bevel shackled to a hospital bed with a sheriff's deputy guarding the door. Now she hounded the Justice Department by phone, as during the Freedom Rides of 1961. And she secured letters that the shackles violated hospital procedures, even for murderers. Her crusade pushed Sheriff Jim Clark into a concession before dawn on Friday. Clark ordered the irons removed and then collapsed early that morning of chest pains, later diagnosed as exhaustion. The front page of Saturday's New York Times featured a photograph of SCLC worker Richard Boone in a Bevel-style skull cap outside the White Hospital, Vaughn Memorial, with movement students kneeling in prayer for Clark's recovery. And so this and other such stories became known to me in the course of 1992, and over the course of what was a close association for about 10 years and then a less involved association from about 2002 to 2012 or so. I was proud to call on Reverend Boone to help us in various ways. He did a lot of work with the Schiller Institute. He did a lot of traveling with the Schiller Institute. He gave various speeches and so forth. But the thing that distinguished him is, in my mind, a passage from James in chapter 1, verses 22 to 26, I believe. Be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. For if any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a mirror. For he beholds himself, and he goes his way, and straightway forgets what manner of man he was. But whoso looketh into the perfect law of liberty, and continues therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the word, this man shall be blessed in his deed. Whosoever looketh into the perfect law of liberty. Well, what is that perfect law of liberty? One of the things that both Bevel and Boone used to say often was, a man or woman contributes at least 51% to their own oppression. And what they meant by that, I always took it that what they meant by that was, it is up to each of us to be the liberators of our own souls and of our own nations. You know, sometimes it said, once to every man and nation comes a moment to decide. But a lot of the time, it's what is decided by that individual person, that one individual, that can actually change the arc of a nation. And so in his association with the Schiller Institute, in his support of Reverend James Bevel's run for the presidency, but earlier in his work in the Civil Rights Movement, you saw one single arc, and that arc in his life always moved toward justice. So I want to take this opportunity to just express how much I appreciate who he was, I appreciate the people he was related to, and I am grateful that he and you gave me the pleasure of knowing him. So again, on behalf of the Schiller Institute, we express our condolences.